Well, it is the 16th of March 2026. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. Thank you very much for choosing to begin your day with us right here at Look Up TV. There's just a lot that we're going to talk about this morning, but a couple of things that you have to know as we wake up this morning. Top headlines that are cutting across what is happening in terms of a leadership struggle at the Nairobi hospital. We'll be telling you exactly what that is in proper detail when we get there. We also do know that Kenya has completed this year's WRC Safari Rally at Naivasha. Big crowds witnessed on that road, that is the Nakuru-Nairobi highway. Some Kenyans have just gotten into the city this morning after leaving that event yesterday at around 5 p.m. Well, it was a success. I'll be telling you who the winners were in that particular event. But most importantly this morning, we do know the land has been for a very long time been viewed as king in terms of investments in the country. But what is of importance for you to understand is that is no longer the case, because real estate as it stands is among the leading investment destinations for majority of the people in Africa and in the country at large. But that doesn't mean that without land you're not investing. It means that you've not opened your way to the investment opportunities that are open in the real estate sector. This morning, we talk about how land is no longer king, that you can start investing in properties and in the real estate sector as little as you have in your pocket. This morning, we'll be talking to an investment executive from VUCA Investment. I was going to be telling us exactly where you can put your money in a real estate and why it's important for you to open those investment opportunities in this particular sector. Looking forward to that. Also, other things that we're looking forward to, we know exactly what is happening in the sports world. Yes, this weekend there's been a flurry of sports events across the country, leaving WRC alone. The English Premier League is kicking in to its final gear. It's only 7 games to go, and Arsenal is leading at the summit with 70 points. That is about 9 points away from the closest challengers, who are Manchester City. Well, also yesterday, for those who do not know, Manchester United won and Liverpool drew with Tottenham. Looks as if Tottenham is fighting not to end up in relegation, the first point of their new manager. That's exactly what it is that you're waking up to this morning. Our conversation span all the way up to 10 a.m. this morning. Talk to us at Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. The hashtag is The Morning Drift. Let's take a look at what you are waking up to on your dailies this morning. And as usual, we're going to start with the Daily Nation. Let's see what is on the Daily Nation this morning. It's talking about how fraudsters run a public service. That's what is here. Let's look at it. What is it talking about? The Anti-Graft Agency has recovered millions of shillings from convicted officers. 250,000, a 2023 report by the Kenya National Qualifications Authority, a state agency that vets academic certificates, found that nearly 250,000 civil servants had fake certificates. Out of the 28,000 cases forwarded to the National Examination Council by 91 public institutions, at least 1,280 certificates were confirmed to be forgeries. 70%. State corporations accounted for about 70% of the forgeries. That's huge. Another 787 public officers out of the total 29,000 across 195 ministries, departments, and agencies who underwent authentication were found to have secured employment, promotion, and redeployment using fake documents. It is just a sorry state of affairs in the national service in the country, civil service in the country, with fake academic papers. Even more worrying is that some of these officers with bogus credentials are rising to leadership positions in state agencies. Story has been covered on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Again, top story up there. There is floods wreak havoc again. Now, despite prior alerts by the weatherman, and just a week after similar floods killed at least 60 people, heavy rains once again caused destruction in Nairobi over the weekend. By the way, for those who know, this was on Saturday, the same place that we lost property and lives within the city. Some Kenyans also found themselves on the wrong side of these floods again, despite the warnings by the weatherman. You know, when you're told move away from there and you go back there again, you know, it's just only you to blame this time around, because we were told for the next 2 weeks we'll be experiencing these heavy rains. So heed that call from the weatherman that the rains are still pounding major parts of the city. We did see a lot of rains in Ngong Road here, in Kilimani and Parklands, and the CBD as well. Hopefully we've not lost lives there. Page 2 and 3. Now let's look at this inside the 2007 state operation to keep Kibaki in State House. The phone call came on at 10 Sunday afternoon on December 30th, 2007. It was made to Nimrod Mbai, then a police sergeant attached to the security detail of Alfred Mutua, the government spokesperson at the time. You will be reading this story. I mean, for those who do not know exactly how these events went down, then you go all the way to page 12. Story here on corruption. City holds car towing extortion racket charges 10 times the set fee. Now, rogue Nairobi County officers are colluding with tow truck operators to extort 10,000 shillings from a motorist, yet the legally stipulated charge is just 1,000 shillings. Now, on this one, if you are not in Naivasha this weekend like the rest of us who are alive, on the back page, we do have Tota's Takamoko wins 2026 Safari Rally for his maiden WRC victory. All right, President William Ruto was actually right there for the closing of that event, posing right there with a rally drivers at Hell's Gate right here in Naivasha. All right, for those who enjoyed the event, congratulations, man. All right, let's cross over to the Standard this morning as well. So we see what has been covered here. There is a story here on the CJ that is Mother Kome, and the story here is that she's under fire, and this is why the judiciary, once hailed as fiercely independent after the enactment of the 2010 Constitution, now finds itself at crossroads as critics accuse it of increasingly bending to the whims of the executive. A pattern of controversial rulings, ignored court orders, and the transfer of judges whose decisions rattle the state is rising fears that the presidency is tightening its grip on the courts. Story has been covered on page 4, and this is a quote here from one Patricia Buyeshe, who sang that when a judge is transferred before delivering a judgment, the succeeding magistrate or judge must often start the case anew, a principle known as de novo. All right? This results in delayed justice for litigants who may have been waiting years for a resolution. The judiciary has been quite silent, isn't it, on cases going across the country. You can feel that silence. Even us here in the media, you can sort of tell there isn't so much a buzz in the judiciary, yeah, And this is exactly what the Standard is confirming this morning, that it looks as if the judiciary has been captured. Talking about a captured bench, the question that they're asking this morning. Being told we have the Standard pull-out. Let's take a look at it as well and see what it's covering. It's talking about kidney transplant that saved my life. The 4-hour surgery saw Mwangi regain energy, his skin complexion, and a new lease of life. He was lucky. Millions of Kenyans live with chronic kidney disease. Story has been covered on page 4 and 5. On page 3, there is an influenza outbreak, how to protect yourself. Also, beyond grades, why schools are frontline mental health providers. Page 6 as well. Now, that's exactly what it is on your dailies this morning. Let's cross over and see what is trending this morning. We're going to start with the WRC 2026 edition Safari Rally Madness in Naivasha. Some people never made it to the CBD. Actually, some of them are making it to the CBD this morning as late as of 6 a.m. and 5 a.m. Massive traffic jams witnessed in Naivasha. Let's take a look at this clip that would paint a picture of how bad that traffic was. This is Don Mogera who's saying kama ulitoka health kit in Naivasha 2 p.m. ulifika Nairobi 7 a.m. In fact, some Kenyans have actually woken up to that reality. This is kama mafuta haikuishia before ufike petrol station, which is 15 kilometers away. James Mutinda was saying the wisest drove towards Nakuru and used Gilgil through Nyeri Nairobi highway to get back to Nairobi. Odhul Mamba was saying, I have one principle in my life, I won't spend my money to stress myself. Niende Naivasha ndio nikae kwa jam. Right. This is Kapman who's saying, nilitoka Kisumu jana, by 2 a.m. I was in Nakuru town, but nimefika home today at 1 p.m. Wow. I've spent 11 hours from Nakuru to Nairobi. Oof, that's it. All right, let's look at another issue this morning. We know that President Dr. William Ruto was in attendance, and they did speak about Kenya's preparedness and readiness in hosting this event as we also get ready to host the World Cup, the Africa Cup of Nations, by the way. Let's take a look at what he said, and then we'll see how Kenyans reacted to it.
Has successfully hosted several major international events, including the African Nations Championships, Rugby Sevens tournaments, the Magical Kenya Open. This week, the Safari Rally. These events demonstrate that Kenya is more than capable of hosting world-class competitions and that our country remains a welcoming destination for the world. Beyond the spectacle, every such event, such as Safari Rally, have a profound impact on our economy. They support business, create employment opportunities, stimulate tourism, and generate valuable foreign exchange for our country. Last year, I asked the Kenya Motorsport Federation to work with the Ministry of Sports and International Automobile Federation to advance two important initiatives: the local production of an affordable International Automobile Federation cross car and the establishment of a rally academy.
Well, that's the president on the sidelines of the WRC Safari Rally. I'll be summarizing those comments before we come to the end of our broadcast this morning as well. Let's move on to another one. Now, this one will show you exactly how Kenyans thronged to Naivasha to attend that particular rally as well. Let's take a look at it. Some of the images from that particular event that shows crowds in heavy numbers at that event. That's it. Showing you exactly how the events went down in one of the viewpoints that was at Hell's Gate, yeah, viewing station for those people who've been there. This is Watatu Watano, all right, who's saying clearly you've never witnessed the Marlboro Safari Rally in the 1980s. People used to line up from Maimayu to Nairobi. Here Naivasha ni exhibition too. Clearly, this is Muriuki was saying that Sunday problem is just poor planning. It's always like that on Sundays. They should have a different entry and exit. Fix the entry to allow more than trying to make sense of what she's saying. Fix the entry to allow more. All right, it's just poor planning. All right, it is what it is. This is a Muturi who's saying they lied. All right. There was a smear campaign on X. I mean, the event went down fine. All right. Then there's one here. There's an average day. That's an average day at a Hell's Gate during WRC. Unfortunately, that's it. All right. We're going to move on to another event that Kenyans are talking about. This weekend, this one touches on the political space in the country. Gachagua has been hitting President Dr. William Ruto heavily on online, talking about how they thought they were appointing a leader, but went right ahead and got a businessman instead. Let's take a look at this particular clip for just a couple of minutes, then see exactly what Kenyans are talking about it.
Makosa na mnisamehe. Tulikuwa natafuta kiongozi tukachagua mfanyabiashara. Huyu sasa amenyang'anya wa biashara wote biashara Kenya. Ako kwa kila sekta ya biashara. One, ameingia manufacturing. Ako na kampuni mbili manufacturing steel. Amenunua Baburi Cement. Amenunua kampuni ya tiles. Na ndio ameweka very heavy tax on imported tiles. Ndio kampuni yake iuze tiles yote katika Jamhuri ya Kenya. Chuma, simiti na tiles. Ndio anasukumia sisi affordable housing kwa sababu ndio anauza chuma na simiti na tiles. Wafanyi biashara wote walikuwa manufacturing ya cement, steel tiles amewaua. Ametoka hapo ameingilia medical business. Saa hii anajenga, anataka kuchukua Nairobi Hospital, ile hospitali ya kifahari. Jana all the board members of Nairobi Hospital wamekamatwa, wamekuwa wakisukumwa wabadilishe sheria ndio Kasongo achukue Nairobi Hospital, wakakataa. So polisi wametumika, wamekuwa rounded up wote, wamefunguliwa different police.
Right. Just a couple of reactions then. This is Vansike who's saying this is exactly what Ruto was doing during Uhuru's time. Why is it that Gachagua is acting like he wasn't on the same ticket as Ruto? Like he was not the DP until recently. Like he wasn't up at 4 a.m. to organize police brutality against protesters. Don't make the same mistake twice, right? This is Nelson who's saying you were punishing Baba, same picture as you. And that is some of the reactions that majority of Kenyans are then pushing towards Rigathi Gachagua this morning. So finally then, there's the last one that majority of Kenyans are also talking about here. This is actually the second last one this morning. This is partly what Rigathi Gachagua is talking about. We do know there's a tussle at the Nairobi Hospital currently as it is for board membership. And that tussle is looking to create some space for new board members that the hospital is pushing back on. And looks as if one board member who was at the middle of that saga was spoken to. Let's see exactly what he said. Then after that, we'll come and make sense of it, because this is a trending story across the country. Let's take a look.
I thank God that we're here, we're strong, and I've been treated well. I cannot complain. And we wait and see the results of whatever accusations they have against us at the court on Monday. But on Monday, should ask all of you to come, even as we pray, come and give me support.
Thank you, sir.
May God bless you.
You too. Yes.
This is Dr. Job Oboaka from the Nairobi Hospital, who was apparently held in the hospital, I'm told, to make sure that that directive that went into the hospital to create positions for new board members was done. Whatever he's saying is that now he's waiting for Monday, today, for that communication from court, so we see exactly how it goes. Whatever directive, we do not know who's pushing this directive. Let's just look at it. This is Regin who's saying, but in his speech he has admitted that he's being treated well and that he's waiting on Monday to see what accusation have been leveled against him. Being a doctor or being old doesn't execute you from criminal culpability. Let's wait for Monday. If you look at that story, nobody has been blamed for being a criminal. It's just that they've been told they have to create that space for those positions in that board. What we need to see, all right? Hakim Nasuru is saying, welcome to the Mafia Gang Republic. Dawa ni moja. This is it. Einstein was saying, you should be protesting kwa streets. Farouk Kibet hajui kusoma hizi vitu. Mnaandika. All right, and there's a citizen who's saying, and the PS Health is silent when all this goes on in this hospital. Good. Now, finally then this morning, we'll be following this story by the way, and we'll be reporting on it and telling you exactly what's going on at Nairobi Hospital. Now, we do know that the weatherman did warn us that the rains were still going to be with us for the next 2 weeks. In fact, this, according to the weatherman, should be about the last week that we're experiencing these rains, but all through last week we were told that the rains are still going to be in Nairobi. Now on Saturday there were heavy rains in the CBD and its neighboring estates, that is Ngong, Kilimani, Parklands, and we did see Nairobians again bearing the brunt of that rain. Let's take a couple of let's take a second and look at this images from Kilimani and come back and talk about it. Some curious Kenyans were saying, but you know, the rains have not been that much to cause this much flooding. Some were saying that the water was looking, this is according to Askumo, was saying that water was looking for a way to Kericho River, but found obstacles. It's an unfortunate scenario, and it's not the very first time that we've seen developers complain about how the constructions in some parts of this city, that is Kilimani, Parklands, and also some parts of major parts of this city, by the way, are constructed in places they're not supposed to be, right? With proper concerns over how rivers are getting redirected to allow for construction. And you can, some Kenyans have come up with proper maps showing exactly what Kericho River should be looking like as it goes through this particular estate, and in most places it's been blocked and redirected. In some cases, it's been forced to make sharp turns to allow for construction. That's what majority of Kenyans here are saying. Let me just look at it. This is Lewis who's saying, kwani imvua haifiki watu wa Icelands. Yeah, it was there. We saw some devastating effects in the likes of Kamulu. Yeah, that's part of Iceland, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. This is Ohaga who's saying, I once lived off this lane, few blocks from a Dennis Street. The runoff from the road is always intense. There is a tiny drainage trench meant to channel the water, but it loses direction because buildings sit where the water is supposed to flow. Even Nairobi County officials, if you do remember Geoffrey Musalia, when he was the CS for environment, Nairobi County government, if I'm not wrong, he actually went to these particular places and complained that in Parklands, guys were even constructing on top of rivers and directing that water to their neighbors. I mean, you've been warned, yeah? So don't come crying again when the rains start hitting you, as we've seen. Good. Now that's exactly where we are this morning in terms of what Kenyans are talking about. I'm not going to talk so much about football this morning. I can see a lot of Kenyans were really talking about it. But as you know, we as Arsenal are champions in waiting. The only thing that is separating us from that trophy is just time. And they said we are concluding it tomorrow, and then Arsenal will be given that trophy. So we're ready. All right. So what we're talking about this morning, for a very long time we've known the land is king. I mean, if you talk to your fathers, you talk to your mothers, they will tell you, if you have money, go buy some property and start building, or put it aside for speculation. As it stands, that is quite an old way of investing in real estate, and real estate is quite broad. For the very first time, right here on The Morning Drift, you're going to table that conversation and demystify why land should no longer be considered as king when it comes to real estate investment. What are we talking about? We are talking about smart avenues of real estate investment that you should know as an investor. What are we talking about? We talk about that once we come back from this break. Any questions that you got, you do know exactly what to do. The hashtag is The Morning Drift. Our WhatsApp lines are right there on your screen. Let's take this tiny breather. Once we come back, table that conversation. Good morning.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu, wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
Is it for you to forgive someone who has hurt you? How easy is it? What are some tips, a person can apply to improve their public speaking skills?
We all have personality lazy somewhere around us.
In my mind, whenever I'm invited for a public speaking event, I don't like to put a lot of, accessories or too many color.
What are the major things to look out when choosing a school for a child?
Another cheesy conversation starter is, men do this a lot. Men look familiar. Have we met before? No. We met in
Nobody's buying that line again.
No, we don't. We don't buy it anymore.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
To the morning break. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kinyage. Let's then table that conversation that we've been talking about since we started our show this morning. We'll be talking about why land is no longer king. Before I make this introduction, I should be asking you this question. Are you intending to invest in real estate and you're saying, I'm going to buy land? Maybe hold your thought right there, because we might redirect your investment plans after this conversation this morning. Now, what we do know, for generations, land ownership has been viewed as the ultimate investment for many Kenyans. Yet the structure of the property market is rapidly changing. That's what you gotta know. Now, data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the country faces an annual housing deficit of more than 200,000 units, while urbanization continues to rise at nearly 4% per year. At the same time, property research firms such as the House Consult report that land prices in satellite towns around Nairobi have increased several times over the last decade, pushing the entry-level investment far beyond the reach of many young investors. Now, what we do know is that despite this demand, the Capital Markets Authority has repeatedly noted that Kenya's real estate investment vehicles remain underdeveloped compared to global markets where institutional capital plays a major role in property financing. Now, globally, a structured investment product have transformed how ordinary citizens access the real estate market. Now, the World Bank has observed that real estate investment trust and similar pooled investment structures have helped deepen capital markets in many economies by allowing smaller investors to participate in the real estate market purchases. Now, this evolving landscape forms the basis of today's discussion as we explore the smarter ways of investing in property and how emerging structures are reshaping the market, with insights from a man that we've been waiting for 2 weeks on this show, one Elvis Onchwari, who is a growth and market manager at VUCA Investment. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing quite well.
All right.
Yes.
It's a controversial topic that we have this morning, especially when you're talking to somebody who is an African investor, more so a Kenyan investor. I mean, Elvis, you and I have grown in African families. And there's this thing that you're always told when you get to your 25s is that you have to buy land. You have to buy land today and start building. Or else, if you're not going to build, you have to start buying land. And here we are saying that land is no longer king in the real estate. You're telling people, don't listen, it's no longer king. You're wasting your money. Why is land no longer king? Let's begin from there.
Thanks so much for having me today. So just going directly into your question, I agree. Most of us grew up getting financial advice on the dining table, right? Back at home, it was always about so-and-so amenunua shamba, so-and-so amenunua shamba, watauza kesho, etc. So it got to a point that all of us believe that the first step towards investing or creating wealth is to buy a parcel of land, right? Now, over time, what we've seen is that over 12 trillion currently is tied up in illiquid land. What we've also seen is that, and I was reading somewhere that in Kenya today, you're not sure whether you're sitting on a title deed or an actual piece of paper because the market itself has become quite risky.
Yes.
So why we tell people that it's time we rethink real estate investing is because we need to look at what is driving us towards investing in a certain way. What you've just said that when you get 25, you need to buy land and build actually demonstrates that you need security. And there are other ways to achieve security. If you're looking at home ownership, what we advocate for is that you should get into it in a way that does not tie up your financial freedom, in a way that years later you're unable to pay and you get liquidated. I think COVID demonstrated to us this thing quite clearly, where a lot of people got stuck up in a sense whereby they acquired parcel of lands and then put the emergency funds there. Then when you're trying to sell, you realize there's no one to buy your parcel of land. So there's certain risks that come into it, and we need to rethink how we actually, and the reasons why we invest in land and get better ways of investing in real estate.
That's it, pretty much. So what we're speaking to, I want to take you back to this data that we've been giving you this morning. It's also indicating that in places where you would ordinarily invest, that land is getting out of reach for an ordinary investor. Looking at the numbers now from real estate, from Has Consult, they're saying that here in Nairobi, especially if you want to buy land right now in Upper Hill, that is no longer for an ordinary investor. That has gone to the retail investors. Places in Kitengela, Kiserian, they're also getting out of reach of an ordinary investor. But then here we're saying, but you can still invest in real estate. And this is why I've been wanting for you to come on this particular show so we can talk about it. Let's talk about REITs then. That's the Real Estate Investment Trusts. Is that what is going to unlock real estate investments for a small investor who might not have that 500 million shillings to buy land today in Upper Hill and speculate?
Well, yes, and going back to why land has become I won't use the word unaffordable, but out of reach, is because you remember land is a factor of production. So today in Upper Hill, anyone buying land is looking to turn it into an actual investment. You're going to build offices, you're going to build hostels, etc. So you realize more and more Kenyans are forced towards purchasing land in areas where your valuations or how you aim to make a profit is relative. So you're not going to turn it into a factor of production. So looking at REITs, so real estate investment trusts are Kenya's first real estate securities. What they do is that they enable the aggregation of individual properties into one vehicle which investors hold through tradable units. So you look at it today, this enables you to invest in real estate that is institutional grade, that is profitable, most importantly is regulated and is liquid. So if you ask me, in my view, this is becoming one of the easiest and best ways to invest in real estate for a small investor, also a large investors, because you see institutions also investing in REITs today. So it's becoming an avenue that more Kenyans need to actually wake up to and actually look into.
Yes, pretty much. Even before we talk about what you're doing as VUCA in this particular area, because that's why you're here this morning, we're saying that this is the way for you to go. What is the lowest amount that I need to have as an individual investor for me to start saying that I can actually go into REITs as an investment avenue in real estate?
We have platforms such as VUCA, as you've mentioned. So you can invest from as low as 2,500 Kenya shillings. So you're simply buying shares. And imagine as you're investing from as low as 2,500 shillings, you're accessing an asset valued at over 10 billion and assets that are located in prime areas that are professionally managed and are regulated. So you can start from as little as 2,500. So gone are the days where to access real estate, you can only invest, let's say, from 4 million Kenya shillings or 5 million Kenya shillings or 800,000 shillings, and you're investing in just one real estate asset. Now, from 2,500 Kenya shillings, you can invest in multiple assets located in different areas, and your risk is well balanced.
That's it, pretty much. We're still digging deep into this. I want people to understand this morning. Every time you tell somebody, you know what, I want you to invest in real estate, especially REITs, that's what we're talking about this morning. The first caution of investment is that you have to be well educated in that place that you want to invest in. That you have to know how that particular investment vehicle, number one, that you put your money in operates, but most importantly, that particular sector that you are investing in. So the question that you're going to find for majority of people saying, well, yes, I can give you this money so that you invest in my place. But should I know where you're going to put this money in, or should I just look at the returns and shut up and say, well, I'm an investor in real estate? But if somebody asks me, why are you investing? How am I going to answer them?
That's a very good question. So one, yes, it is very important that you understand the underlying assets with any investments, especially REITs. So in this case, you need to understand where is this REIT investing in, which sector is it into, what are the assets they actually have. So I'll give an example using the Econ REITs, for example. So the Econ Student Accommodation REITs invests in the Kwetu and Kejani student hostels we see around. So if you're keen as you move around Nairobi, you've seen the Kwetu and Kejani student hostels. So it becomes easy to understand that these are hostels, they host students pay rent. So when VUCA comes and tells you you're investing in these assets, you quickly understand that you're investing in real estate, but within real estate you've gone into a sub-segment, which is youth housing, and at the youth housing you've also gone deeper into a segment which is student accommodation. So you understand that this is how student accommodation works, this is how students get into hostels, this is how they go to university. So from that little understanding, then you start understanding how return is generated upwards to you as an investor. So it's very important today that you understand what exactly you're investing in. So if a VUCA investor, you ask a VUCA investor today, what are you investing in? They will tell you you're investing in Kwetu student hostels, right? So it becomes very easy. If you ask the investor where you're investing, they'll tell you, if you ask someone who's investing in land, they'll tell you they're investing in, they have a prime parcel in, let's say in Kitengela, etc. So the same level of understanding you have when you're purchasing land, we've also brought the same level of understanding when you're investing through REITs. Yes. That's why you say it's regulated, right? You get proper reporting, it's institutional grade, it's well managed, professionally managed. So there's a lot of expertise that also goes behind this, and also to us as players in the market to educate investors as to how this investment actually works.
That's it. Good. Let's talk about VUCA then. What role do you play in that ecosystem?
I'll start with what VUCA is. So VUCA is Kenya's first regulated platform that enables Kenyans to invest in professionally managed institutional grade real estate. In simpler terms, VUCA enables you to own shares of the Kwetu and Kejani student residencies. So beyond what it actually does, the role we play in this market today is mainly educating the investor. So we run a campaign where we tell people, let's rethink real estate investing. So that means we're not telling you, give us your money instantly. What we're telling you is, let's rethink what real estate investing is. Let's understand how you can actually invest. So our key role in the market is, one, educating retail investors to understand real estate better. We like to say that you can invest in real estate speculatively, opportunistically, which is what a lot of Kenyans do, or you can invest in it thematically, where you look at the macroeconomic trends. But how many of us Kenyans have time to actually study the House Consult report, right? Yes. So it's our work to demystify what that report actually says, yes, so that Kenyans actually understand it. We go deeper and we tell people that you can look at real estate as a savings plan, right? So we say home ownership is not an investment. It gives you more security because it gives you a sense of belonging. That is security. You can look at real estate as a business. We like to say rental properties are a business because you're actually actively managing these properties. It's not necessarily passive. Then you can look at real estate as an investment. That is where the confusion comes in, because an investment needs to be passive. You can easily sit at home and earn passive income. That's why you look at bonds. I say bonds are passive income. Money market funds will give you passive income. So rates are also there to give you passive income. So in summary, our key role in this market is to educate retail investors to understand that it's time we stop locking our cash in idle assets, right?
Yes.
And actually invest more in financial assets. Or even in real estate, now real estate has been converted into a financial asset that you can invest in.
That's it, pretty much. So let's simplify then. So today there's somebody who's listening to you and said, well, interesting that I can actually start investing with as little as 2,500 shillings through VUCA. So they say, well, I'm going to talk to Elvis. So today I'm crossing over to VUCA. Can you paint for me that picture today as an investor? Say, well, I watched you at Lookup TV. I want to invest through you guys. How is that process going to go? Can you talk to them?
Talk about it. So what we'll tell you is first visit our website, which is www.vuca.co.ke. We've provided a lot of information online about the investment and how it works. Beyond there, we've given you an option. You can either create your account instantly. We only need your KRA PIN and a copy of your ID.
That's it.
It's all online. You create an account and you easily invest. So you have your entire digital platform where you can actually buy shares and sell shares, and you're seeing it all on that platform. You can also have an option speaking to an advisor. So we tell all our clients that immediately you join VUCA, you get access to an advisor. So someone will help you understand the investment a lot more. So the next question that an investor will ask us is, so why invest with you guys? Why will I invest in you guys when it comes to real estate?
Yes.
And what to tell them is that you're investing in real estate that is regulated, that is secure, because your investment is asset-backed. You're investing in tangible assets that are on ground. So we even take investors for a tour to actually see these hostels. So some of them will come and tell me, we didn't know we can visit these hostels, but you can actually go and see how these assets are actually performing, who they actually host. So we organize property tours as well, so that an investor understands and connects where their money is actually going into. Another key feature is that it's liquid, because you're holding tradable shares. The platform enables investors to trade amongst themselves. So that has made real estate a lot more liquid. You can imagine now you can liquidate in real estate within 7 days, as compared to selling your parcel of land. It probably take you years. Right? So when liquidity comes to matter, VUCA enables you to actually liquidate from real estate quite easily. It's tax efficient, because REITs in Kenya enjoy tax efficient statuses. So in that sense, your capital gains are not taxed.
Yes.
Right? So if you invest $1 million Kenya shillings today, 3 years later that $1 million Kenya shillings has grown to, let's say, 1.5 million Kenya shillings, you get it with no tax, with no transaction fees, with no annual management fees. So you realize real estate has become quite affordable and beneficial. Yes. The rental income that is distributed to you in the form of dividends is only taxed at 5% at source, so you get a net return. So it gives you a double benefit, whereby your investment appreciates as the assets are revalued and appreciate. Then your rental income we collect from students is distributed to you annually as an investor. So if you ask me, we've really transformed how real estate investments actually look. So for someone listening to me and you would like to explore such investment, the first step is visit our website, www.vuca.co.ke. You can easily create an account online and start investing in a matter of 5 minutes.
That's it. I was told to ask you this question directly, and it's also in line with what I also wanted to ask you this morning. I mean, you have two types of investors who are listening to this morning. There's a long-term investor and there's a short-term investor who would like to call himself or herself a trader in real estate. That I put my money in, wait a couple of months, and then I take out my money. Let's talk about that. That the competition in terms of short-term investment in all the other sectors in the country is with what young people in this economy are called forex trading, where they're told once you learn your ways about trading, you will go in, put your money in, learn the market, know exactly how it operates, and then after that, cash in. That the biggest competition to the old school investing that majority of us were taught is what now young Kenyans are getting taught now, forex trading, capital markets. That is what stands as the biggest competition to any real estate avenue that you may want to pull in young people too. Can you talk to them this morning? Is it possible for you to say, you see that money that you have that you're trying to trade on forex, you can actually mirror that kind of thing, or that kind of trade, in real estate investment through REITs? Is that possible? And number two, long-term investors are looking at the returns. Right now, as we sit here, we do know the return on investment for apartments in this country, furnished and unfurnished. We do know the return on investment year on year from offices in the capital city in Nairobi and major cities across the country as well. Those numbers are there. So what is the selling point for REITs? Are you selling above what is already known in the market, that the return on investment for a long-term investor is going to be above these figures that you're seeing here for furnished apartments, for property in the country, and also for apartments and offices across the country? So could you speak to both? That is a short-term investor who wants to be a trader under REITs, and also for long-term investor who already knows what percentages they're going for long-term.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I'll start with the first one, speaking to the short-term trader.
Yes.
Now, unfortunately, real estate is not for a short-term trader, right? If you look at real estate itself, all the stories you've had, you bought land you held for 20 years, 15 years, then you would try to liquidate and you get a profit at that point in time.
That's it.
So real estate in itself, how it's created, how the asset works, is that it's a long-term investment. So even through REITs, we tell people that the value of real estate does not change on a daily basis. Right? You can value real estate on an annual basis, but you can't look at share price and say it will change on a daily basis. So the short-term investor, we understand even with the young people, right? There's this thing of getting quick rich, but in reality, every story you listen to, be it Warren Buffett and the likes, one key thing that comes out from them is that they invested long-term. Because if we're honest, wealth is generated over the long term. Right? Whoever role model you actually follow will always, when they're honest with you, they will tell you, we grew this wealth over 10, 20 years, etc. So real estate generally is for a long-term investor. It's for someone who's looking to get into it long-term. And we like to tell investors is that if you have $1 million, don't just put $1 million, all of it in real estate, right? Diversify your investments. Put X in a bond, go and trade some of the NSC and buy certain shares, invest in real estate so that you have a diversified portfolio. That way you have investments that are short-term and investments that are long-term, and you're balancing your portfolio. Moving on to the next question on return. So even within VUCA, we tell investors that we aim to deliver above traditional real estate returns, right? So we understand the returns that are offered by commercial spaces, furnished apartments, etc. So we aim to deliver above that. So when you look at even VUCA in itself, we have two portfolios. So we tell investors we aim to deliver a return of 7% to 12% per annum. That's a target return. So, but you still need to look at it long term, because real estate also has fluctuations, etc. So you look at it more of a long term investment, and others will argue that return is still quite low, because we have a fascination or an idea that real estate should deliver 18, 20%, 30% type of return. While it's possible when you look at it from a development perspective, because that is what some of the developers who develop real estate actually make, but the risks associated with that are quite high. Right? Because you've seen developers who started developing, they aimed to make even a 20% return, then at some point the building isn't finished, right? They're still paying debt to banks. So you realize if you go at it even as a retail investor in the development real estate, that return can be wiped out because of the risk that is associated with developing real estate. So we're not saying it's not possible. We're saying it's possible, just that it's possible when you're developing real estate and the risks are quite high. So at times you may make it, at times you may not make it. Yes. But for the average investor, we encourage them to invest in income generating real estate, in real estate that has been stabilized, that is already in the market. Then you settle for your 7 to 12% per annum type of returns. And remember, you diversified your investments. So you have other investments, higher earning, lower earning, you have your money market funds, you have your fixed income deposits as well. So you balance out your portfolio. But in summary, we aim to deliver above traditional real estate returns, because even traditional real estate, if you look at what you're paying in stamp duty, your rental income taxes, if you look at what you paid in terms of legal fees, if you look at the cost involved in managing even an apartment, in fencing that parcel of land, if you look at it, your net return, quite honestly, you'll find it at 3%, 4% per annum.
Yes.
Right? But again, there are people who chase the cash flow, and that's why, so when you look at cash flow, real estate has become a business. You're not looking at it from a per annum type of return perspective, because an investment, you look at it, what am I getting per annum basis. So if you compare those two factors and REITs, we deliver this target return of 7% plus on an annum basis. Yeah.
What has been, we'll say, your average?
Our average the past 3 years has actually been 7.2% per annum back to investors. And VUCA today has over 20,000 investors who are Kenyan investors actually, and we're very proud of that, who are investing in real estate. They've rethought how they actually invest in real estate.
That's it. Talk to me about because every other person would ask you this question, the security of the real estate sector. Now, I will take you back to what we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic. I will take you back to every time we have an election and we are approaching an election year in this country. There are some sectors that are deemed as non-defensive. And real estate is one that is deemed non-defensive, where investors normally say, guys, not important. Wait, let's get done with this. We're going to come back to it. It's not as if there's an emergency in the economy now for us to continue developing. How defensive is it? Is that what is going to make somebody say, maybe let me hold on, wait for this electioneering period to get done, then I'll come back and talk to VUCA after 2027 August, which is a period we're getting into now?
Okay, real estate over time has been quite defensive because people say it's earth, right? But how I would rather look at it is look at the sector that we are operating in. So I'll come back to VUCA. So VUCA enables you to invest in student hostels. So let's look at this sector, which is student hostels. So one, you're investing in tangible assets. So when we tell you your investment is secure, it's actually asset backed because the money you're giving us and buying shares, it's tied to the actual asset. So as long as you can see the asset is on ground, your money is backed by that asset, right? So that gives you security. In fact, we like to say our investment goes beyond giving you security. It is actually asset backed. Your funds are backed by an actual asset, right? So now when you look at the risks that come up with student housing, one of the key risks that is there is if all universities were shut down, let's say students are no longer studying, you have no language schools teaching students, etc., then that is a risk. And how that risk crystallizes is that the rental income will cease collecting it. So the return to an investor in the form of rental income is a bit low, but your investment is secure because the asset is still there. Right? So there's that security element. Then there's obviously now when you look at the asset, and you like to say like student accommodation is such a bulletproof sort of asset because you're providing living, you're providing housing to students. Some of these are foreign students, international students. Some are Kenyan students who maybe they came from Eldoret and they're studying in Kenya, or they came from Eldoret and they're studying in Nairobi, or you came from let's say Kisii, Kisumu, anywhere you're studying here. So because there is demand, right? Median age is 19 years. I think I checked recently and data showed us that the number of university students are above 570,000. And this is a sector that is continuously growing. So I like to say, as much as you can say real estate is defensible, right? Look at the underlying business principles. What sector does this asset fulfill? If you look at hospitality, for example, the Dubais and Irans and all, because of all this war, you find hospitality is really suffering, right? Because they depend on tourists. Now, if you have no tourists, that sector starts suffering. But the asset is still there, still secure. So your funds are still tied to this asset. So if you look at it from a security perspective, you realize that real estate is very bulletproof. It's very secure. It can weather the storm. But now when you're looking at it, getting income, there's certain risks that will also impact the income you're getting. So it's good to understand it to the actual sector that you're actually investing in when it comes to real estate. If you look at office spaces, back then office spaces were a very popular sector. Today, co-working space is what has picked up. People are working from home, right? So you need to understand the security of investment from the aspect of which sector does this real estate investment operate in. VUCA, for example, simply operates in student accommodation. So you need to understand what impacts student accommodation.
That's it. Yeah. But I'll come back to you on the type of investments and your plans maybe to go into other areas as VUCA on the second part of this conversation. But I want us to stick on this first one. Speak to the retail investors listening to you this morning. Are you removing yourself from the official financial line impact, for example? I mean, we normally do wait for the Central Bank of Kenya to really come in and announce what the bank interest rates are every other time. I usually wait for that report. And then I say, ooh, so lending is going to improve or go down. Are you completely removed from the economic shocks that normally come in the financial markets? It's a decision that the Central Bank of Kenya might make as rates, where you're saying, you know what, because of this, then our returns sort of tend to be stable within the rate system, as opposed to a construction. Probably somebody went for a loan and then built a student hostel, and then all of a sudden the bank interest rates shoot up. So that means that my returns are actually diminishing as I wait for the market to stabilize. Are you completely removed from that system?
Well, I don't think there's any sector that can be completely removed, but I would say we are almost fully removed from that segment.
Yes.
If you look at things like inflation, right?
That's it.
So you find when it comes to real estate and inflation is increasing, you will increase your rent to match inflation. So you realize real estate gives you a curb to inflation. That's why I like to say that real estate sort of hedges you against inflation, right? So that's one clear angle. So you find real estate is most of the time tends to be quite removed from that aspect. If you look at things like interest rates, right? So even in the case of REITs, at some point you'll have to use debt to increase economies of scale. It's just that it's regulated as to how much debt you can actually pick. The most ideal way is to develop real estate by pooling funds from individual investors, but even that takes time in such a market. So at some point you have to pick debt. So when you pick this debt, what you'll see is the cost of debt may increase, may decrease, because it's a finance cost when it comes to a real estate investment trust. But again, how you curb that is your rental income, right? You're able to increase it as well in terms of escalating rental income, and you're able to also pay that back. So you realize, yes, I will say macroeconomic factors do impact even REITs in this world, just that when it comes to REITs and underlying asset real estate, and real estate is able to curb or that to basically sail through such macroeconomic shocks as they come. And that's why I always say it's important to understand the underlying assets. Student accommodation is now a need. Everyone wants proper housing for students to actually live in. So because you invest in a real estate asset that is a need in the market, not just a good to have, then you realize even those shocks, we are able to circumvent such shocks as well.
That's it. Now, address the elephant in the room then. Why did you focus on student accommodation? And how much is it a need, especially in the Kenyan economy? Because then, for any other investor that is listening to you, will say, you know, I will go into this because these are the facts that have been laid bare to me. And at what point and what solution are you trying to give in the economy that this is where your money actually needs to go? Yes.
It's good you've asked that question, because I mentioned earlier that in real estate you can go at it speculatively.
That's it.
Where what many of us Kenyans do, you assume a road will be developed along Kitengela somewhere, so you go buy land and you're hoping to make a killing. Others will go at it opportunistically. So even before we joined this market, there were people developing hostels, right? So people saw an opportunity, they were in the market, they saw, let's say near Strathmore, there are a lot of hostels that have been developed thereabout. So that was opportunistic. Then you can go about it thematically, which is what we did. So when we looked at data 10 years ago, right, one thing we saw is that people are becoming more renters than owners, because the young population, incomes have shifted as well. You look at the median age, it was 19 years. Right? If you look at the percent of people staying in urban areas, they're also young people. So we noticed certain shifts in the macroeconomic trend. Then we realized that because our population is becoming quite young, these young people need housing. Right? So it was very easy to come and decide that because people need housing and they're young people, how do you give them dignified housing? So when we looked at housing for young people, we even went a step further and we realized that there's an opportunity, a thematic opportunity in student accommodation, right? So we decided to start a student accommodation. Why? Because despite all the median age, people becoming renters, we realized that students are joining university each year from different parts of the country. International students are coming to Kenya, but they don't have a place to stay at, right, or to live. So when we looked at data, we realized over 500,000 students in university, right? So the next question was to us is, where do these students actually stay? We know people are renting, right? So we realized the housing that was in the market for them, not only was it wasn't enough, but it was not dignified. It was not a proper community for these students to be able to succeed in their studies and actually enjoy where they stay. So we even looked at pictures of what is offered in the market, and we realized there's a thematic opportunity here for the long run, because each year more students are joining university. So the next thing we did a lot of research actually, and we realized, so we have over 500,000 students. If we start developing hostels, other people will see an opportunity and develop hostels. So there was now a competition risk. So we came with a lot of research, eliminated students who may not want to live in student accommodation, people who may not even afford our type of housing, etc. And we decided we'll only offer housing to 80,000 students. So what that does is that we've carved our own market and said, as much as this market has over 500,000 students, and the number is growing each year. I think last year, over 200,000 students joined university. So the number keeps growing. So we told ourselves we'll only carve out 80,000 beds.
Out of the 500,000? Out of the
500,000 beds. So anywhere developer can come and develop whatever type of housing they choose to develop. But because we have the first mover advantage, we realize now our properties are constantly on high demand. Today we've only developed 20,000 beds. Over 10,000 are operational. So you realize the market opportunity is quite massive. And that is why we ask Kenyan investors, retail investors, to pick up this type of real estate investing, because we're doing it alongside you, we're doing it together, and we're addressing an actual need. If me and you go back to look at the type of housing or type of hostels we had when we were in university versus what Kiwetu or Kejani Student Residencies is able to provide today, very different type of housing. And we realize that people want dignified housing. Parents want to give the children the best. So when you look at this market opportunity, you realize there's space for even different other people to come and develop hostels. But it goes back to data. We looked at it from a thematic perspective. We were not speculative, we were not opportunistic in any way. And we started developing these hostels in 2015 actually, 2017. We are now, it's now in 2026, over 20,000 beds, different hostels in different areas, looking at also going into Eldoret to offer housing. So to any investor watching this and trying to understand, is there an opportunity here? What type of real estate investment is this? What makes you special? It's because we looked at actual data and we understood where this market is actually going today.
That's it, pretty much. You know what? I want to take a tiny breather. I still have more questions. But let me just go through a couple of them. And this emanates from a conversation that we didn't have just before you came in. It was 2 weeks ago, and went back and looked at exactly what guys were talking about on that feed. And the questions here on regulation, questions here on tax that is a push to this type of investment. We'll be talking about it once we come back. Also questions here from competition from the government that is looking into the real estate sector as well. We'll be talking about it on a deeper level once we come back, and also giving you more tips on how to get started as an investor with a VUCA. Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift, we're telling you land is no longer king. In fact, from your bed this morning, you can be a real estate investor, or in other terms, a landlord. Once we come back here on The Morning Drift.
I recall the doctor telling me that day, he said, "Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but you see, life happens. You would have to learn to work with your hands, depend on your hands more."
And today, if you're going through anything that you do not understand, just call on this name, Jesus, and he will save you.
I realized I loved music when I was about 7 or 8. I used to puff my cheeks and play the 12-bar blues. Like I'd walk around the house doing like...
Why do we need the Holy Spirit?
I mean, if you look at what Jesus said when he was leaving, he said he is going and that he will send the Holy Spirit as our helper.
So God knows everything since the end, from the beginning, has a plan for your life. So to find that plan for your life, you must find God. When you find God, you will know the path for your life.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
Is it for you to forgive someone who has hurt you? How easy is it? What are some tips, a person can apply to improve their public speaking skills?
We all have personality lazy somewhere around us.
In my mind, whenever I'm invited for a public speaking event, I don't like to put a lot of, accessories or too many colors.
What are the major things to look out when choosing a school for a child?
Another cheesy conversation starter is, men do this a lot. Men look familiar. Have we met before? No. We met in
Nobody is buying that line again.
No, we don't. We don't buy it anymore.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. We are still telling you why land is no longer king. And we're communicating this through VUCA. If you do not know, then go online, search VUCA. All right? And after that, you're going to be part of this conversation. Now, I'll go back to questions that you had about this similar conversation that we had here a couple of days ago, and I'll begin. I did put them together. So here is the first question that I'm going to put through to Elvis this morning. Here it is. This is Levina. Good morning, Levina. And so the first question here is, on the regulation front, how regulated is this type of trade? And number two, does the regulation mirror the trading we see on the NSE? You respond to that.
Yes, so REITs in Kenya are regulated by the Capital Markets Authority.
Yes.
Right? REITs are actually a collective investment vehicle, quite honestly. So they're regulated by Capital Markets Authority. Now, moving beyond that, for example, I'll use the example of the Econ REITs, Econ Center Accommodation REITs. We are also listed at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, but under what we call the Unquoted Securities Platform. It's a USP. If you look at the NSE, there are various segments. There's a main segment where you'll find most of your banking stocks, for example. Then there are various other segments, and us we're listed on the Unquoted Securities Platform. What that enables us to do is that we limit, basically, the vagrancies that come with the market, right? Because again, I mentioned this is a real estate investment. So you don't want people trading on hype, you want people trading and understanding the actual value of the asset. So when you listen to the USP and your platforms at VUCA that enable you to trade the shares, you're trading at the actual market value of the actual assets. You're not trading based on our CEO did this, the CEO of Econ Holdings may have done this. Yes. You're not trading on the basis of floods have come into this property, so now the pricing changes. You're not trading on hype, literally, right? You're not trading on what someone declares the selling price is, right? So we've controlled how investors can actually invest in the Econ REITs, because most importantly, we care about the investor. That's right. That's the most important thing. We want the investor to understand that real estate operates very differently from a banking stock, for example. Right? So because of that, we trade on what we call the Unquoted Securities Platform. It's all online. If you go to the Nairobi Securities Exchange website and you search even the Unquoted Securities Platform, if you search the main segment, you will see the different listings and under each of the different companies listed or entities listed under each of that. So because of that, in summary, REITs are regulated. It's listed in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. VUCA as a platform that enables people to invest is also regulated.
Yes.
Right, and authorized by the Capital Markets Authority to do what it does in the market. So you realize you're not investing, we're not telling you to invest somewhere that is regulated through a platform that is unregulated, right? So there's all that makes the investment quite bulletproof. Something like VUCA has a custodian, which is NCBA. So we don't even manage client funds, right? If you look at the structure of a REIT, in the case of the Acorn REIT, a trustees cooperative bank. And this is all information that is online. Like I like to say, when it comes to investments, it is good to do due diligence and do research. In our case, we're an open book, quite literally. If you go online, all the information I'm talking about is available.
That's it, pretty much. I'll move to the second one. I know you did sort of highlight it when beginning this conversation, but for any other person who's listening to you, and this is what we got from Honorable Tony, and this was last week, was saying, interesting, can we talk about the tax percentages that make it more attractive than the traditional type of investments? If I own property versus REITs, what tax am I exempt?
So when you own REITs, you're exempt from tax, from capital gain taxes.
Yes.
Right? So your capital gains are untaxed, quite literally. It's like at 0%. So I mentioned earlier, if you make a capital gain when it comes to REITs, you get your money as is, because you're putting your investment, let's say you put a 1 million Kenya shillings investment, or 50,000 Kenya shillings, years later it has grown to 55,000. You get 55,000 back when you sell your shares. You're not required to file that again to carries, because the REITs enjoy a tax exemption status when it comes to capital gain taxes. That's one. When you look at your rental income distribution, which comes as dividends, right? At the REIT level, it's taxed at a withholding tax of 5%. So you as an investor, you get net of that. And when you get your dividend income return, you no longer need to file that again to carry. So you're making, that's why I say it's very tax efficient. When you combine the 15-16% you'll get from rental income tax as well, or even your money market fund, I think the withholding tax around 15% last
Yes.
I checked, etc. So when it comes to REITs, you realize it's a very tax efficient way to invest in real estate. REITs don't have stamp duty costs. It doesn't have legal fees costs. We don't have agency costs where you have to get an agency to sell or buy for you or pay a commission, etc. So if you eliminate all these costs, if you look at all these costs quite keenly, you realize REITs are not only very affordable, but they're also very tax efficient to you as an investor.
Yes. Yeah. Another one here. I'll just read them as they are. Good. And this one is from Charity, who's saying, so when I start investing through VUCA, am I investing in existing projects, or I am going into an offline kind of investment? Can I invest in existing projects or projects that are to come?
So when you come into VUCA, we have two investment vehicles.
Yes.
We have what we call VUCA Imara, and we have another one called VUCA Prime. Now, I'll just explain them. So VUCA Imara enables you to invest in the Acorn income REIT, the Acorn Central Accommodation Income REIT. What that means is that you are investing in assets that are already existing and are generating an income. That's where most retail investors invest in. So if you go on ground, you've probably seen the Kwetu near Hurlingham, there's another in Wilson View, near Strathmore, there's another in Jogoo Road, Parklands, Waraka, etc. All these are assets. If you look at all these assets, they're hosting students, they're making an income. So we tell an investor, you're investing in this portfolio of assets that are already existing and already generating an income. So there's no aspect of investing in off-plan assets. Then we have another investment product which we call VUCA Prime. Now VUCA Prime enables you to invest in the development REIT and the IREIT. The key difference is that the development REITs invest in originating properties from the ground up. So someone may look at that as a bit of off-plan, right?
Yes.
Because the asset does not exist yet, but we're developing it. So there's also that aspect, but that tends to carry higher risk. Right? So when you come to a platform, it depends on your risk profile. You can choose to invest in assets that are fully existing and income generating, or you can invest through VUCA Prime, and VUCA Prime gives you exposure to assets that are also under development.
That's it.
Yeah.
Who's this investor who's going to go into VUCA Prime? What kind of profile are you looking at?
So VUCA Prime is looking for someone who, one, you're able to tolerate higher risk when it comes to real estate. You're looking at a horizon of 5, 6, 10 years plus of an investment. You've already built other investments. You have your emergency fund, money market funds, you have your fixed income funds, you're investing in special funds as well, etc. So you've already built a collection of investments. So VUCA Prime for you becomes more of a diversification. So you're looking at it 10 years down the line. It is not for an investor who you will invest today, then 2 months down the line you need cash to sort a medical bill, right?
That's it.
Or you need cash to pay rent. That's not how it works, because you realize long-term investments should not be disrupted frequently. You need to put cash and look at it in a long-term manner. So it's mainly for that investor who has basically grown in terms of the investments they have, and they have a very long-term horizon.
Yes. I would ask this last one before we continue the conversation as well. And this is from Christine. Good morning. And this is what Christine is saying. So can I get on the platform basically to buy and liquidate my investment?
Yes, you can, and it's good Christine asked that because it shows transparency.
Yes.
So on the platform, you can log into the platform, you have a full view of your investment, so you can buy shares, your return is paid through the platform, then you can withdraw to your M-Pesa or bank account. You can see how your capital appreciation has come to you or is growing. You can see how dividends has been paid, so you have a full view of how your investment is performing. Most importantly, you can buy, which is investing, and you can also sell your shares online and liquidate the investment. You don't have to go and look for someone to buy your shares or to sell to, right?
Yes.
It's basically done through a digital platform, all online. So that makes the investment quite easy. And I like to say, don't compare the investment with a money market fund, but compare it. If you're to buy an apartment or that parcel of land, and look at the benefits we give you. In our case, in the case of a parcel of land, when you look at valuation gain, it's relative. You basically hear someone, your neighbor sold at X, so now you believe you can also sell at the same price. When you go to sell, you realize it is not real. That's not the reality.
You got
in a case when you say capital gain, you can actually sell at that capital gain at that point in time. So that's the key differences when you look at VUCA. So yes, you can buy and sell easily, liquidate, top up your account, track how your investment is performing.
Yes.
You basically have a full view of your real estate investment.
That's it. Good. Let's talk about institutions then that are listening to you this morning and saying we can put our money in. What is the minimum investment from institutions in the country?
Yeah. So if you are in an institution, the minimum investment is around 20 million Kenya shillings, and you get a blended offering where 70% of that is invested in the IREIT, which is the income real estate investment trust, and 30% goes to the development real estate investment trust, and that also balances risk. So
yes.
The minimum investment for an institutional investor is higher. VUCA simply came in to allow an investor who may not have a minimum of 20 million Kenya shillings, and maybe you have 100K, 50, 5,000, 2,500 to actually invest. So there are those key differences. But an institution starts from 20 million Kenya shillings. You will easily speak to your broker who will do the investment in the investment for you. VUCA, you don't need a broker. We've basically eliminated all those vagrancies that you would have when it comes to investing in the stock market.
That's it. Good. Let's talk about competition then. For people listening to you, we do know that any international investor who wants to get into investment in the country, the first place they look at is the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And they will look at how some counters on Nairobi bulls are performing. We do have the examples of the likes of Centum. We do know exactly what their performing numbers are. And in one way or another, they might be put off going by how the real estate counters on our bulls are performing. Actually, they've not been top performing. What would be the way to go? Is it to officially list so that at the end of the day, you're shouting and say that this is the way to go in this country? Or do you want to go this private-led way where you're doing your education as VUCA by yourselves and you're really talking to private investors to come in and invest through you?
Well, I think listing fully, like list on the main segment,
yes.
is really not the solution. The solution in the market today is educating people as to what actual trading is, what buying shares in company is, and what that means and how that impacts your investment. If you look at the main bosses, you've said the best performing stocks are banks.
That's true.
And that's mostly because debt in Africa, in Kenya, is quite expensive, so banks tend to perform also quite well. So you realize people chase the return and the hype they see, etc., as opposed to understanding the actual investment. So even for an international investor who comes, as I said, the REITs are listed on a different platform, which is an quoted securities platform. Financial results are published there on an annual basis, etc. So it just doesn't have the daily excitement that people tend to want to see in buying at high prices and selling at low prices. So an investor can also analyze the financials of these REITs and see how it's actually performing. But to me, in my view, it all boils down to how people understand real estate. It's very easy to understand banks and how banks make money.
That's it.
It's not easy for people to understand how real estate companies actually make money and how they work, right?
Yes.
So I usually compare it to a glass of beer. If you put beer in a glass and you see the foam and the actual liquid, so people tend to make decisions at the foam level as opposed to making decisions at the actual quality and quantity. So in our view, when it comes to real estate, I believe the market may not fully understand how real estate actually works and generates value to investors, right? So that may push back people. That's why we're in this market to educate folks. Because for us, the most important thing is to first educate investors. And you remember, even when Safaricom did the first IPO years back, investors took loans to go and buy those shares. In reality, a financial advisor will not advise you to pick a loan to go and
buy shares
and do such. And people liquidated very fast. Today, Safaricom is back to doing quite well. So you realize people forgot that long-term mentality and how to actually get into the investment. So we find ourselves in that space where people need to understand real estate is not what we learn on the dining table. Right? It's not just what we hear other people saying, but generating value in real estate is quite different. So once you understand that and you understand if I invest in real estate, then this is what I should be able to expect.
That's it. Good. It's a good thing that you spoke about emerging trends within the real estate sector. And this is where the biggest critics normally come from. And even when I was having this conversation, I've got a couple of gentlemen here in the studio say, but we know for a long time that is the way you're supposed to invest in real estate. And they say that we've seen emerging trends in the real estate sector. Or they're saying that we have a real estate sector boom that is just about to go bust, especially when it comes to apartments in major cities and towns across the country, especially in Nairobi. They're saying that it's just about to go off for the majority of investors, that we have a lot of them. And now they're saying there are other trends that we've seen and they haven't really kicked on, especially in furnished apartments where they're saying it's 50-50. You might hit, you might not hit it, depending on exactly where you are. How do you respond to those who are saying that, well, even student accommodation is a trend that has not been tested and tried for a long time? What gives you confidence that this trend for student accommodation is here to stay?
Yeah, so I'll just start on student accommodation. So it's when I look at student accommodation, in our view, it's not just a trend because it's backed by actual data. It's backed by a median age in your country being 19 years. It's backed that people are joining university each year. It's backed by the fact that there are over 500,000 students in university today. It's backed by the fact that people will always be joining university, language schools, etc. Right? So because it's backed by that data, you realize it's not just a trend. And I like to say that even in student accommodation, it started even before Kwetu came up. Right? People were actually doing hostels, a very small scale level. We've just institutionalized it and seen that this is more mathematical opportunity, that it's here to stay and actually grow. Right? So I like to say it's not just a short-term trend, it's more of it's backed by long-term macroeconomic trends. Now when you come back to look at real estate and how, I see people say there's a boom, etc., because they're seeing many apartments coming up, you're seeing many of those apartments empty, etc. I think it's a key thing to remember that over 80% of real estate in Kenya is not institutional grade. Right? And what that means is that when you look at real estate, some people just have too much capital, so they're capital rich. So they're looking for a place to store capital, so they just build apartments. And you realize the market may not specifically want that type of apartment. Right? So you realize in some areas, some different apartments are doing quite well, etc. You realize areas where you can't go and build a 4-bedroom apartment. That area is probably for people. will pick up demand if the apartment is a bed sitter or a one bedroom. Right? So you realize there are a lot of, and when I say real estate in Kenya is not regulated, it's because people do it because of, it's in a relative manner because of stories they had as opposed to understanding what will actually drive this pickup in real estate. In reality, incomes have changed. So people may not afford the same real estate they could afford today. That's why you see affordable housing coming up and trying to be, it's a sector that is targeting a certain segment of people. In reality, as our population is continuously growing, more people are living in the urban areas, there is always going to be demand for housing. The difference is what type of housing are you actually developing? Because someone will build an apartment here, someone will come and say, hey, this one built an apartment here and it's growing. Let me build another block right there. So there are those differences that come up. That's why I say, when you look at real estate, even from a developer perspective, you really have to understand why you're actually doing it. And I know some people are capital rich, so they just store money, really don't care about getting tenants, so it's okay if the apartment is empty. To them, they will keep it. Same thing with Kenyans. A Kenyan will tell you, this land that I will buy, I'll use it to get a loan. Right. Well, in reality, it's just easier to go to a SACCO and get an affordable loan when you're buying shares, right? So someone will say, but I'll keep it here for 30 years. But who told you your son or daughter may be interested in that parcel of land 30 years? The best thing you can leave them is income-generating assets, quite honestly, because now even though you have 3 children, how would you divide just quarter an acre of land? Someone may want a full one, another may not want it. So there are all those succession laws. In fact, I like to tell people that if you're going to buy real estate today and you've not thought of succession, go to family court today and just listen in as to how people actually argue about succession. To the point that I did it once and I was wondering, these are families that actually grew together, but today they're fighting for property. Because a very interesting dynamic as well.
Yes.
So to me, there's really no boom. It's just more from a developer perspective, you have to understand what sort of housing you're providing. I'll give an example. As years go by, you'll realize there's going to be demand for retirement homes, because our generation is no longer willing to go and stay in the rural areas with parents, young people today. People don't have that time. Yes. In the Western countries, you've seen retirement homes picked up quite well. So our old folks will go stay together as a community, etc. In Kenya, it has not yet picked up. There are very few. Yeah, but you'll notice in the future, it's still real estate. But it's real estate that serves an actual purpose. Mixed-use developments came up. Right? So people want to stay in estates that are communities. So you see developers now doing that. It's still real estate. There's a market for it. If you look at retail malls, right? Today strip malls are becoming quite popular. You have Arcadia along Mombasa Road near Green Park Estate. Yes. You have others. You have basic mall that is coming as strip malls, and you're seeing people are showing demand for that. While someone will argue, but there is a mall somewhere that is empty. But you realize someone has discovered that the issue may be the parking or the large size of the mall. So people are interested in sort of shop and go where you easily find things. So to me, the boom is literally not there. It's people failing to understand how the market is moving and what sort of real estate that is required in the market today.
That's it. Yeah. Good. It's a concern we also got from international investors. And they're saying, well, if you look at the real estate sector in the country as it is, that the government has got heavy focus on it. And then they say that in places where you have the government competing private investors, that might not be a potent place to go. Case in point, in this country, the government is really focusing heavily on the affordable housing agenda. In fact, as we speak right now, the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company is operating at throttle speed. Majority of Kenyans now do know very well that with proper backing, you can start constructions cheaply in the country as it were. And here you are saying, we want to operate in this space as well. Are you feeling the pressure that in one way or another, the sentiment in the real estate sector in the country is that the government has got a proper hold of it? No other private investor can come in and compete the incentives and initiatives that are getting pushed by the government. Do you feel that?
It's a good thing you mention it, but again, you realize we're here to complement affordable housing, right? Even our accommodation falls within affordable housing, because it's all about providing dignified housing. The areas where you come and compete at is on mainly operating those assets, because it's one thing to develop the assets, it's one thing to actually operate it. Right?
That's it.
I like to say, if you go to a place like Nyayo Estate was built years back, but you see today it's still existing, it's an estate, it's a community. maintaining that community becomes a challenge. So you find, even with government and them developing affordable housing, the next big thing they will realize, beyond developing, how can we operate these assets and ensure people who are living here actually stay in the long term and they have dignified living. So in our case, we don't, I don't think in our view, we don't feel the competition. We are simply there to complement it. We've literally had our first mover advantage. There's so many lessons we've picked up in this market. One of them is that it's developing maybe the easier bit, operating it and keeping students and people living there for years since 2017 to date. That is where most of the work actually goes into. So the biggest tactic is, how are these assets going to be continuously operated to ensure the living standards are okay. Things like supplying water, things like the garden you first saw when you moved in, will it still be there, etc. That is where the challenge actually comes in. As we find private developers have sort of mastered that art. But in summary, we're simply here to complement. The market is big enough. I said, us guys are only interested in developing 80,000 beds. Currently, that's what research shows. Government can continuously develop more hostels as well. We know the market has different types of people, so people may choose to stay in our community, people may not choose to stay in our community, etc. Even when we did our research, we realized some students do not wish to stay in hostels, they wish to stay back at home. So there are all those, there's a lot of research that goes into this to even understand the competition risk that is actually present.
Pretty much. I kind of mentioned this as well in light to your explanation this morning. I mean, even the first Kenya's green bond, we did see exactly where it was utilized in. It was utilized in student accommodation. Somebody said that would be an eye-opener for any other investor who wants to get in, that they might choose to go that direction as opposed to going to this private investment way for rates. Does that open your eye as well to that might be another place for competition?
Yes, it does. And we were the first, ECON was the first entity to do the first green bond. So we did it, used the funds to develop assets, paid out the green bond. Then later on we launched real estate investment trust, because now we realize there's this also new avenue that is more long-term. Right? Remember, a bond is also still debt, so it gives you financing to develop. So yes, we do see developers may choose to come and actually develop, but again, maintaining that status of being environmental friendly. When you look at water, you use water. When you look at not using plastic, for example, again, there's a whole lot of operational work that goes beyond that. So again, in fact, it helps us in deepening the market, very similar to how money market funds came, right? So when money market funds came, there was the first one, there was the second one. There are very many money market funds in the market. If you realize, the one key thing all these money market funds are doing is they're educating investors at their own level. So it becomes an investor to choose which money market fund do I actually want to invest in based on other aspects, such as do I trust this company, do I have a financial advisor here, etc. So for us, we encourage it because it deepens the market a lot more. We can have a lot more Kenyans investing in capital market instruments. These funds can sort of now move our country a lot forward. We can finance other developments in the country. So we're very pro developing our capital markets and using financial assets.
Pretty much. Good. We have 5 minutes then. I want us to summarize this conversation this morning. Like, this is my final questions on this conversation. I'll begin with the first one. Is a summary of my research that I show online for people who are sort of interested in this kind of conversation that we're having here this morning. Number one, what gives you confidence out of the years that you've been in operation that this is the way to go?
That's a very, very interesting question. So again, no investment is risk-free. Like, nothing worth doing is actually risk-free. So I'll start with that. But what gives us confidence, again, it's mainly the data we've seen, the lessons we've gotten from the first time we developed Jogoo Road way back, Kwetu Jogoo Road way back in 2017, how we see the dynamics of students shifting. Today we see a lot of international students coming to study in Kenya as well. So we've also created a market for those students because now they have a safe community to actually stay in as they study. But mostly what gives us confidence is the macroeconomic trends I mentioned. Median age being 19, youthful population, people constantly joining university year after year to study, supporting government and ensuring that education as a sector continues to grow. So based off those, we continuously see this sector growing. And you see, us guys, our hostels simply host students. As long as we're a country, we're in a place where people are pursuing education, then we see demand for our hostels, right? Because people are continuously studying, and most importantly, they need dignified housing to support them even as they pursue their studies.
That's it. Second question then. Digital investment technologies are coming up in the real estate sector globally. Yours stands in that line as well, that from where I'm sitting today, I can start investing in property. Do you believe that we as a country have got proper digital regulatory frameworks that can either come regulate or support systems like yours, VUCA?
Yes, as a country we do, right? So for example, like VUCA itself is a digital platform that is regulated, right? So the Capital Markets Authority have done quite a lot in ensuring you have digital platforms. Other platforms such as CHUMS is a digital platform, right? So we have a lot of digital platforms in the market today that are regulated by the Capital Markets Authority, and we give credit where it's due. They've enabled, they've seen that where the market is going, more people are becoming digitally enabled. So they've enabled platforms such as ours to exist in this market, to enable Kenyans to invest. And one of the key things I like to mention, at the end of the day, because people tell me that I've told them to stop owning real estate, what I'm telling you is now you can own real estate traditionally. Basically, let's go get a title deed that you may not know that it's paper or an actual title deed, the risks that are there. Or you can still own real estate through a digital platform. At the end of the day, you achieve ownership, right? Just that in the case of VUCA, we're telling you you're owning institutional grade, regulated, which is very important, and professionally managed real estate. So I like to say in summary, at the end of the day, we're telling you own. We're not telling you don't own, we're just telling you own real estate that is more efficient. Yeah.
That's it. Right. This is an interesting one, and this is what I sampled from some of the concerns. And somebody saying that, look here, if I were to buy land today and give it a 10-year wait period, my speculation will tell me I'll get a couple thousands, if not million shillings on top of my investment. Does rates reflect this, that over time, if I'm a long-term investor, if I started from a certain point, then my return on investment is also bound to reflect?
Not only do rates reflect that, because rates do actually reflect that,
yes,
but we are more transparent.
That's it.
Right? So in our case, we will tell you, we started in 2021, as of end of 2025, you have a 16% gain, which most importantly, you can liquidate. You can get that gain, right?
Yes.
I won't come and tell you that your valuation is based on a petrol station being developed, or a road passing by here, or someone has told you X, or neighbor X has sold X, which is the reality in Kenya, right? The reality in Kenya is that most people who tell you their land has appreciated, right? They didn't go to a valuer most of the time. It's relative. It's based on stories they've had. Now, the reality further comes in when you try and liquidate your position 15 years down the line, right? At that price that you believe is the actual price. Then you realize there's no one buying. You realize when you went to buy your parcel, there was a whole bus tour taking you, but when you're looking to sell, it's crickets. It's basically no one. So you have to get an agency first. So you'll pay this agent maybe 1%, 2%, even up to 4%, right? So you realize again your gain is also reducing.
Yes.
If you look at the costs you put in those years, fencing it, getting security for it, assuming you didn't turn it to a factor of production, if you now minus all those costs, you realize your gain has actually been eaten into. And that's why I like to say, in my view, land will always be a factor of production. It is okay to speculate if you choose to speculate, but if you venture in the aspect of speculating, you need to be capital rich, because most of the capital rich individuals that speculate and we look after will tell you they already have financial assets, they have different assets, they already have their income sources settled. So whether they sell or not, they're okay not selling for another 10 years, just wait until they get the right buyer. You, on the other hand, it may be you're looking to sell to pay university fees, because that was the actual plan. Now you realize you can't afford to pay fees in university. And we get a lot of investors when come to VUCA and tell us, can you help us sell X parcel? And that to us is a very sad story, because that's why we tell investors, even as we're continuously growing, it is time we rethink. It is time we diversify. Fine, own your parcel land if you must own it, but at least diversify your investments. But yeah, REITs give you the same type of benefit. In the case of REITs, it is more transparent, it is regulated. Most importantly, we've achieved liquidity.
That's it. Yeah. Good. Take 1 minute, 30 seconds to respond to this one then. Majority of investors and Kenyans at large still do not know much about REITs. What do you think financial institutions would do to make sure the majority of Kenyans get into this space, and what needs to be done for more Kenyans to wake up to this investment reality?
I think what needs to be done is that the market needs to deepen. We need to have more players in the market as well, launching REITs. We're seeing them coming up, and as more of these players are launching REITs, more people become aware about it, because now you have multiple people educating the market about REITs. We need financial advisors trained, because financial advisors offer advice to clients about REITs. Most importantly, I like to say it all the time, it goes back into such conversations that we're having. Right? It's more about educating the investor to rethink how they look at real estate. I usually go back to money market funds, because my past experience, I worked in the field of growing money market funds, and you realized money market funds grew because digital platforms came up, more people got regulated, it became easier to invest, the return offering also boosted it, security, especially after COVID, because before COVID people still were asking, why should I leave my bank? After COVID, people realized this money market funds, people could actually liquidate their investments easily, right? So people started treating it as an emergency fund. So it was also fueled by sort of that crisis. But today we just need more players in the market educating investors about real estate investment trusts and this new way of investing in real estate. And that is what we as VUCA are also constantly doing at Acorn. We're constantly doing it, but we are also very keen on other players coming into the market, but it's also platforms such as yours that you provide us guys to actually come and speak about REITs more. We understand that it will take some time, because again, you're speaking about something that is at the core of every Kenyan, right? Very similar to how banks are still at the core of every Kenyan, so money market funds are a challenge.
Yes.
In our case, it's real estate, something people grew with and see and saw working. Probably someone saw their parents sell land to take them to school. You had it in dining tables at home. So it will take a lot of time, because people look at it as, well, you're arguing with me. Unaniambia nisinunue shamba na mimi nimeona shamba inafanya hivi. Ama you're telling me now to not rent an apartment. We are saying do it. We are just telling you there are better ways to actually still do it. We're not trying to argue or discourage you. We're just educating you to do it a lot better.
Pretty much. Good. 2026, what are we looking out for?
2026, I'll use the case of VUCA, we're looking at acquiring more assets, we're looking at onboarding more investors, we're looking at changing the narrative about real estate investments in Kenya, and basically growing our investor base and getting more and more people invested in real estate investment trusts, specifically our Kwetu and Kejani hostels. I think our biggest goal is to transfer this ownership idea that it is Kenyans who own these assets. And it goes much deeper for us, because if more Kenyans own these assets, we provide more jobs. If we develop more assets, we provide more jobs. These assets are property managers. So it goes beyond even the indirect benefits that we are creating in this economy. One of them being job creation.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oof, pretty much. Thank you very much for coming by, man. You see why we needed you here a couple of weeks ago, isn't it? It was a fantastic conversation. Guess what? You can be a landlord today. You can actually drive along some of these properties and tell people, you know, I'm a landlord here. These guys are paying my rent. It's actually true. That's what Elvis is saying this morning. And it just takes as simple as you waking up this morning, going to VUCA, all right? Talk to them. And they said, if you want to talk to them directly, you can talk to them directly, and you can start your investment journey today as we speak. That's the new age, the digital landlord. Well, you didn't buy the material, you didn't call your tenants, you don't even know them, but they're paying your rent. Simple as that. All right. That conversation is done and dusted. Guess what? We'll call him back again for other conversations. And I do know that we are organizing for our studio talks right here in the studio. We're going to call him back again so they can talk to you as a young person today who's thinking about investing 10 years to come. That's the way to go. REITs. know about it, understand it. For all those who sent in their comments at Look Up TV across all our social media platforms, thank you very much. Our WhatsApp lines are either on your screen. Talk to us like we always do. We shall talk back to him after he leaves the studio as well. Good morning. Goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow for another conversation.